Well, if you wanted to see the spot where the very first president of the United States was inaugurated, you have to travel a couple hundred miles north of Washington, D.C. George Washington actually took his first oath of office as president in Lower Manhattan on Wall Street in a spot that is now commemorated for that historic moment. For what turned out to be a brief, shining moment, New York City was the first capital of the United States of America for a little over a year. George Washington lived then not in a big White House, but in a New York City rental like so many millions of us have since that time. New York City in those days was, in every important sense, the center of the United States of America. And for a brief, shining moment today, New York City was, in a sense, the center of our political world once again. Two guys from Brooklyn and a guy from Queens walk into a room to discuss the immediate future of the government of the United States of America. It's all up to them. If those three New Yorkers reach an agreement, the government continues its normal operations. If they don't, the government shuts down. They didn't reach an agreement today. And so we are now 26 hours away from Donald Trump's next shutdown of the American government. The last time the government shut down was the last time Donald Trump was president. One of the guys from Brooklyn reminded the guy from Queens that there were no government shutdowns when Joe Biden and the Democrats were in charge.
When I was leader, we negotiated 4 times with Republicans, and we never had a shutdown. And so it's up to the Republicans whether they want to shut down or not.
The two guys from Brooklyn tried to explain to the guy from Queens that he was hurting people who cannot afford dramatic increases in their health insurance costs. But trying to explain that to the guy from Queens isn't easy because he doesn't know those people who struggle with the cost of health care. The guys from Brooklyn went to local Brooklyn public schools. Chuck Schumer, now the Democratic leader of the United States Senate, is a proud graduate of James Madison High School on Bedford Avenue in Brooklyn. Hakeem Jeffries, now the Democratic leader of the United States House of Representatives, is a proud graduate of Midwood High School on Bedford Avenue, about 10 blocks north of Chuck Schumer's high school. And Donald Trump is the rich kid from Queens who now occupies an Oval Office he has stained with the vulgarity of his obsession with gold, and he went to boarding school. Boarding school is not the place where you meet people whose families have trouble paying the bills. The golf courses where Donald Trump spends his weekends, including this weekend, when he could have been working on funding the government, are not the kinds of places where Donald Trump's going to meet people who have trouble paying for their health insurance.
He laid out to the president some of the consequences of what's happening in health care. And by his face and by the way he looked, I think he heard about them for the first time. The closing of rural hospitals. The fact that so many clinics are closing. And I don't know if he knew this before.
Of course he heard it for the first time. Of course he couldn't possibly have known it before. Or he would have taken the situation more seriously, right? He wouldn't have spent the weekend doing absolutely no governing work whatsoever. He wouldn't have canceled the first meeting that he had scheduled with those two guys from Brooklyn last week. Would Donald Trump have spent Saturday slumped in a golf cart, exhausted, while playing golf with his granddaughter? If Donald Trump knew what was at stake in the funding of the government, would he have been posting on social media, sending out a quote, all necessary troops, this is what he said, all necessary troops to protect a ravaged war area? Ukraine? Gaza? No. Donald Trump tweeted about sending 200 National Guard troops, quote, to protect war-ravaged Portland. Portland has never been war-ravaged. No part of the United States of America has been war-ravaged since Abraham Lincoln was president, and the Confederate States that now so enthusiastically support Donald Trump were making war against the United States of America. Of course, if Donald Trump thinks Portland is war-ravaged, then his cognitive decline has reached very, very, very high speed, and it's getting faster every day. There was other evidence of that dramatic cognitive decline this weekend when Donald Trump should have been concerned about how to keep the government running. And he was instead tweeting an imaginary image of firing someone he cannot fire. There's Donald Trump in a possible flight of dementia, thinking that he's in his old TV show, and he's the chairman of the Federal Reserve, is a contestant in his own TV show who Donald Trump can fire. No previous president has been deranged enough to imagine that he could fire the chairman of the Federal Reserve. After that burst of possible dementia, Donald Trump's next entry in social media was, quote, "make crime illegal again." Okay, Donald, should we make water wet again? And then on Sunday afternoon, with the nation reeling from a deadly attack on a Mormon church in Michigan, Donald Trump posted a video imagining that marijuana can solve all of his elderly health problems. Was Donald Trump high at 4:48 p.m. when he tweeted a goofy sci-fi style video about how cannabis can completely cure every single thing that people his age are suffering? If Donald Trump believes what he tweeted, there is no reason to think that he doesn't. He tweeted it, he must think it, then Donald Trump is probably using cannabis. Why wouldn't he? It cures every problem he has. I don't know why he still has that problem with his ankles if he's using cannabis the way he's telling people to, the way that video urges people to use it. But cannabis use can have accompanying energy slumps, which could explain Donald Trump's apparent low energy in that golf cart on Saturday. And this morning, Donald Trump woke up possibly still high because at 8:43 a.m., he posted about a self-proclaimed New York City communist running for mayor. The problem is there is no self-proclaimed New York City communist running for mayor. Trying to teach Donald Trump the difference between a socialist and a communist is, of course, impossible because he is incapable of learning. But it is the difference between Bernie Sanders and Kim Jong-un. In that same post, Donald Trump said that communism has failed, quote, for thousands of years. Thousands of years? Communism is just a few decades older than Donald Trump. And he thinks it's been here for thousands of years. How high do you have to be to think communism has been around for thousands of years? How do you talk to that man? How do you negotiate with that man? Most of us think it's impossible. But someone has to do it. And someone has to do it because lives are at stake. Someone has to do it because in a matter of days, some people are going to see their health insurance costs go up by thousands of dollars that they cannot afford. Those people desperately need someone, anyone, to talk to Donald Trump. And today, our first guest did exactly that.
Republicans control the House, Republicans control the Senate, and Donald Trump is the president. If the government shuts down, it's because Republicans have decided to shut the government down and hurt the American people. And that's a point that we made loudly and clearly.
The Federal Unionist Network put out a statement today supporting Senator Schumer and Congressman Jeffries, saying a government shutdown is never Plan A. Federal workers and the communities we serve will face severe hardship, but federal workers will willingly forego paychecks in the hopes of preserving the programs we have devoted our lives to administering. In order to save our services today, we need to send a message to this administration that enough is enough.